Alright, so I decided to make another YouTube video. A lot of you guys have been asking for me to make new videos, and I just wanted to tell you that I have made new videos, I just haven't posted them yet. If you want to follow me and watch my posts, I have 5 different places that I post on. I have a Reddit, I have a new Tumblr, I have a Facebook, I have a backup Facebook, and I have a FetLife. So if you want to keep up with me and what I'm doing, I got those 5 different places I post on for now. Also, to the people who have negative thoughts about me and what I do doesn't hurt you, it doesn't affect you. I fuck dogs, get over it. And where I do it, it's legal.
I don't want to give this magical, beautiful girl, so magical, so beautiful, so beautiful, so magical, any more advertising than I already have. But her most famous video, posted 4 months ago, called 10 Reasons Why Girls Should Have Sex with Dogs. It has 1.4 million views. I've received many links to it. She has other videos like Girls Masturbate Too, Spit or Swallow, and the one you just listened to. Maybe it's all a ruse. Maybe it's a work. Who knows? Could be fake. It could be legitimate. However, whether it's fake or not fake, her face is still on these videos. It's her moving around in front of that camera saying these words. And these are not lightly viewed things. Somebody is bound to recognize her. You're the girl that fucks dogs. Or that says she fucks dogs. Jewish intellectuals have created some very odious ideas. Very damaging ideas that have been adopted, that have been internalized by certain people, certain targets. But at the end of the day, who's to blame? Is it the poison salesman or is it the customer? Knowing damn well what they're buying. You can't be sold if you're not a good customer. And you European goyim, you are excellent customers. The father of pornography, Jewish guy, who said that his goal was to destroy Anglo-Saxon culture with pornography. He saw a weakness, and he exploited it. He saw a weakness in the Anglo-Saxon psyche, and he made some coin off of it. Who's to blame? The buck stops somewhere, and you don't like where it stops, so you blame others. And that's that. Don't look in a mirror, it'll hurt. Just keep denying. Keep denying that you have a problem or that the problem is even yours. How many years after the sexual revolution? How many years after women's suffrage, universal suffrage? You know, it says in the Bible, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And you think you're smarter than God. Okay. At your own peril. This is Common Filth Radio, episode 73. Thank you very much for listening. You are looking at some fan art Axo did, and I have Axo's Twitter linked below, so check that out, please. And there are other pieces of fan art I have not yet featured. It's difficult to do more than one a week. I don't prefer to do it, but if you have sent me something, I have not forgotten about you. I just want to clear up some things, make sure it's okay to use. But it's lovely. It is wonderful, everything everybody sends to me. And that Bible verse. The exact verse is Mark 3:25, King James Version. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. But what do they know? What do they know? We have dog fuckers in our house, and that's a house that can stand. That's a house that is solid. It has a solid foundation. A foundation of dog fucking. I've come to the realization that whites, like pretty much every other race, they're made up of a bunch of moral invalids. Now, this hurts me because I belong to the European, the vast array of European genetics. Something I can't change. It's not something I'm going to feel bad about, but it is something I'm going to call out. It is something I've explored. I explored it on Common Filth Extra, episode 7, which is available now. $1 or more. I journey into the abyss that is r/cuckold, which I didn't think would exist to any significant degree, but there's 42,000 people on there. And if you want to hear me give my thoughts on that and get some insight to how these people think, $1 or more, it's a 30-plus minute episode. It's good stuff. I found out how prevalent sexual treachery is amongst Dutch people. And if you want to hear me elaborate on that, well, Common Filth Extra, Episode 7, commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com. And I say that whites are moral invalids amongst many other races of people that are made up of mostly moral invalids, but the problem with whites is that we rationalize our moral invalidity as virtuous. We're most proud of our treachery, our deviancy. And no amount of metapolitical minutia can fix that. And it is a problem that needs to be fixing. Don't be mistaken. I don't get people who focus on the politics of politics above conduct. The very thing that makes us human. How we relate to one another. Conduct, behavior, character. Things we are actually exposed to on a daily basis. The effects of which we feel everywhere. Let's use Dogfucker Girl as an example. Probably comes from a fucked up family, who knows. Maybe her family's enabling her and they love her so very much. Because nobody has the nerve to tell her no. Because she's a white girl and she's young and she has tits. That's how it works. Nobody says no. Nobody tells them to shut the fuck up. Nobody tells them, no, you're wrong. And look what it leads to. Dog fucking. Well, let's take her for an example. Despite how fucked up her family most likely is, there's probably somebody in that family who is deeply disturbed, who carries the reality with them. Who carries the reality of, oh my god, my niece, cousin, whatever it is a dog fucker. Somebody carries around the burden of that thought with them. And it most likely affects them greatly. Affects them at work. Affects how they interact with their friends, their own families. Whether people want to admit it or not, they carry around bad days with them. Bad aspects of their life. They internalize it. And it ends up creating a couple of more bad days. It ends up creating more malaise. It multiplies. It grows exponentially. One person has a negative interaction with another person. That person goes on to have more negative interactions with other people. It's like dropping something into a pond, a pebble. You think, oh, a pebble doesn't matter. A pebble makes waves, and those waves continue on and on and on and on. Human behavior is no different. And this is what we are exposed to on a daily basis. Unless you're some shut-in who, whatever. If that's the case, you're making your own effects. You are impacting somebody else. You are causing somebody else shame with your conduct. Somebody knows who you are. Somebody knows where you are. No matter what you do, you're going to have an effect on somebody. And notice what that girl said. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect you. You belong to the same humanity as I. And the humanity I belong to is spiritually retarded. It ranges from spiritually dead to spiritually retarded. Emotionally retarded or emotionally dead. Morally retarded. And morally dead. These are problems that cannot be repaired through metapolitics, legislative trickery, demographic reversal. These means that do not address the underlying pathology. The pathology that we have merged with our spirit, our cultural bloodstream, our spiritual bloodstream. I talked about this on Common Filth Extra, Episode 7. Let's use an example. I grew up a little bit in the housing bubble. Housing bubble kid. I saw firsthand, Juan keeps our yard so nice, such a good landscaper. Doesn't matter if he's here illegally. We'll keep paying him. He does a good job. And then he invites his 20 kids and a dozen of his thug friends I've witnessed firsthand whites being apathetic, morally apathetic, to their own displacement. I've witnessed firsthand the moral apathy of those of European descent about their children being deviants, fruitless deviants. It is all the same. You see, it's not the life itself, it's the quality. If it's the life itself, well, just fuck indiscriminately. Have children out of wedlock with multiple children, and there you go. But we know that's wrong, don't we? On some level, we know that single motherhood bastardry is wrong. I'll give you another example. Go look at a video on YouTube. Not right now, later. Look up a robot playing a guitar, and it'll be playing some pop songs. And you'll be like, okay, it's technically perfect, great. It accomplishes its goal, but it has no feeling. There's no spirit to it, there's no emotion. Why? Because there's no human expressing itself through the instrument, interacting with how the musician feels, how he or she feels in themselves, how they're feeling through the instrument, how the instrument is making them feel. There is a spiritual component to music, that which cannot be quantified. White people know all about that. They love engaging in pathologies that can't be quantified, so that they can maintain some plausible deniability. I wrote this down for myself, just as I was about to fall asleep, because it was a really good thought, and it ties into with what I'm talking about here. Colonialism is the white man's biggest mistake. He put planes and boats in every corner of the globe, displaced native populations, and allowed them to live amongst those who displaced them. It's not unlike burning down your neighbor's house and letting his family live in your guest room. They'd much rather be at home, and they resent you all the same. Another thing that I can add to that just came to me. The thought just occurred to me. Colonialism is a game that the white man invented that he himself cannot win. This ties into breeding strategy. Europe has harsh winters, therefore resources are more limited. Manage them more wisely. Therefore you have less children but invest more in them. With other people, resources are in abundance, so you can have kids more frequently. So once you put all of these people with different approaches to life, creating life, what happens? It becomes a giant game of, fuck you, got mine. Fuck you, I have more. It is a game the white man cannot win, through breeding, which is ultimately what we're talking about here. So, he has designed for himself a game he cannot win. So what is he most proud of? He is most proud of his depravity. And here's where we'll get into the stories for this week. And this is a throwback. This is from the 5th of September 2007. In a prequel to Rotherham, gay couple left free to abuse boys because social workers feared being branded homophobic. Well, man-boy love is a proud Aryan tradition, so you did the right thing. You really did. Craig Faunch and Ian Wathy were one of the first homosexual couples in the country to be officially approved as foster parents. They looked after 18 children in only 15 months. With no previous convictions, you see, they hide their pathology. They hide it behind things you can't quantify. They came across as respectable men who simply wanted to help boys with a variety of problems. Who wrote this? Paul Sims. Paul Sims, you dumbass. In reality, they were pedophiles who repeatedly abused the children in their care. Even when the mother of two of the children reported her suspicions to the council, officials accepted the men's explanations and did nothing. Instead of banning children from staying with Faunch and Wathy, they sent youngsters with more serious problems to them. The bigger the problems, the hotter the problems, am I right? Between them, the couple abused 4 boys aged between 8 and 14. In a scathing report published yesterday, Wakefield Metropolitan District Council was condemned for treating the men as trophy carers. The children's charity Kidscape, wait, trophy carers? These guys? What did I say about social hierarchy? And we're 9 years in, almost 9 years. Not almost, but we're in the calendar year of 2016. 9 years. And there you go. Trophy carers. Natural aristocrats. Am I right? The children's charity Kidscape said those in charge of overseeing the safety of children in the care of Faunch and Wathy had allowed political correctness to override common sense. The report, following an independent review of the case, said one manager described the couple as trophy carers, which led to slack arrangements over placement. Gee, wonder why. Wonder why they were considered trophy carers. Another said that by virtue of their sexuality, they had a badge, which made things less questionable. You have the worst priorities. And we were surprised that Rotherham happened. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. That's all I'm going to say about that. It was clear that a number of the staff were afraid of being thought homophobic. The fear of being discriminatory led them to fail to discriminate between the appropriate and the abusive. Oh, well, it's all the same. There's a lot to be learned from, what relationships? As that one 4chan, C-H-O-N post said back in the day. That I screen capped myself firsthand. I've posted to them on Twitter before. Really terrible guy that was making those posts. He bragged about he got smooth talked by some pedophile. And he had like really nice things to say about his abuser, the guy that turned him gay. And by the way, the reason I talk about this stuff more frequently than I used to is because every day I see some bullshit from some young person militantly defending the honor of these natural aristocrats. This is what young people worship the ground these people walk on. And they're all white kids. They are most proud of this. They take the most pride in being a part of this, being an ally of this. The report also accused the council of failing to carry out proper assessments before and after the children were placed with Faunch and Wathy. Issues arose in the first longer-term placement of 2 children, including potential indicators of child sexual abuse, which were inadequately investigated, understood, or acted upon, it said. And now this is reminding me of, I think someone in the Labour Party said that there's no proof that sex harms children. I think I remember that right. I'm not going to search for it right now, but something I might go back and find and bring back up when I'm recording again. Globalism versus nationalism. Globalism versus nationalism. Multiculturalism versus nationalism. Look, nationalism is fine up until the point you realize that these are the people you're going to be accepting into your nation. These are the people that are going to be composing your nation. And you will fall into the same traps over and over and over and over and over and over again. But it's okay because it's your, fellow countrymen doing it. Treachery is cool, right? It's the quality. It is the quality of people, the conduct of people, the character of people. That's what matters. For reasons I have already explained. Where did I leave off? More children were then placed with Faunch and Wathy, some successful, some with concerns which were again inadequately investigated, understood, or acted upon. The practice of some social workers in this case was deficient. The report's authors, led by former Surrey Social Services Chief Brian Parrott, said they could not be sure that Faunch and Wathy were predatory pedophiles who became foster carers in order to have access to children. Does it matter? They added, our criticisms are much more of those in middle management whose job it was to piece together what was really happening, to ask the right questions, and to be critical and probing. Wathy, 42, was jailed for 5 years in June last year after being convicted of 4 counts of sexual activity with a child and 1 offense of causing a child to watch sexual activity. Faunch, 33, received a 6-year jail sentence after he was found guilty of 5 charges of engaging in sexual activity with a child and 2 of taking indecent photographs of a child. This culture really does have a child abuse epidemic, doesn't it? 5 and 6 year jail sentences for this. For this. They are roaming free as we speak. The couple who lived together in Pontefract, West Yorkshire, were approved as foster carers by the council in August 2003. Their victims included a 14-year-old boy with Asperger's syndrome, a form of autism who had a mental age of 7 and was forced by Wathy to watch gay pornography. That's only a 5-year jail sentence. Abusing the mentally handicapped. Another youngster with a very troubled background was only in their care for a few weeks before being abused by Faunch. But social workers had been aware of inappropriate behavior long before then. Just 8 months after they started as professional foster carers, a mother of 8-year-old twins who couldn't cope with raising them on her own voiced concerns about them with social services. While visiting the twins, the 34-year-old single mother was shown a picture taken by Faunch showing one of the boys going to the lavatory to visit a Butlins holiday camp in Skegness and discovered a similar snap had been taken of the other twin. A social worker took the photograph and promised a full investigation. But the court heard that not only did social services staff lose the photo, they decided against contacting police after accepting Faunch's explanation that he was trying to embarrass the boys into shutting the lavatory door. I like how this nugget of information is buried at the end. Police later discovered that days after the photos were taken, Faunch recorded an indecent video of the twins taking a shower. They began abusing the boys 3 months later. Undetected, the offenses continued over an 11-month period. Leeds Crown Court was told last year. Police were called in to investigate the couple only after one of the abused boys told a woman he had been touched by one of the men. Faunch abused all 4 boys and Wathy targeted one of them. Judge Sally Cahill, QC, said neither had shown empathy, remorse, or any responsibility for their actions. No shit. Yesterday's report said that the fostering panel, which approved Faunch and Wathy, accepted without hesitation their request to look after only boys on the basis that they didn't feel equipped to look after girls. Oh, that didn't send off the warning alarms. That didn't trip any triggers. Are you all lobotomy patients? Child abuse knows no gender boundaries. Despite this, right? I actually skipped ahead. Before that, it said, the report made 41 recommendations for overhauling the council's fostering process. Last night, Michelle Elliott, director of Kidscape, said common sense went out the window when they allowed political correctness to take over in this case. I don't care if you are homosexual or bisexual. You don't care despite the fact that this is the cause of it. If you are taking care of children, you need to be vetted and subjected to the same investigation as anyone else. Child abuse knows no gender boundaries, except in this case where it did. They targeted boys. They wanted to sample young boys. Wonder why. They are aroused by that which is biologically incompatible with them. And they want to relive the abuse. They want to give the abuse to other kids that was given to them in their childhood. That is most likely what this is, and we allow it to continue. We view it as virtuous. Elaine McHale, the council's corporate director of family services, said it would be inappropriate to comment on the report until after a meeting of the full council on September 12. And now we move on to this. Somebody sent this to me on Twitter. I received so much of this stuff now that I can't remember who it is who sent me this stuff. But if it was you, just let me know. I'll give you credit. Why not? This is what happens now. People read stuff and they're like, oh, I better send this to Common Filth. Look, I appreciate it, but it's funny because people ask me how I do it and they don't know how I do it. And at the same time, lots of people seem hell-bent on making it worse. Except that it doesn't. It doesn't bother me so much as the responses I get. We should know better, but apparently not. So this is from Instinct magazine, which has headlines like, Daniel Radcliffe's erection plays a big role in new film. Get to know teen wolf's first bisexual wolf. Straight guys are giving bro jobs thanks to a new app. You have an odd definition of straight, whatever the fuck this website is. I'm not going to link to this website. No, I'm going to link to the original story. Yeah, this is from My News LA, which is far more family friendly, it seems, than the other thing that I was initially linked to. Anyway, My News LA. He killed his live-in boyfriend, disemboweled him, and stuffed his organs in his mouth. Wasn't there an incident in Germany just like this that was actually caught on tape? It's a piece of lost media. I remember reading this on the Lost Media Wiki. And it's considered lost because it's still, the tapes that were done of this are still in the possession of the authorities, or they were destroyed. But regardless, it was two German guys, I believe, and they're both gay guys, and one cannibalized the other. And this this is a similar thing. He killed his live-in boyfriend, disemboweled him, and stuffed his organs in his mouth. It's from mynewsla.com. A 38-year-old man was convicted Thursday of voluntary manslaughter for fatally stabbing his live-in boyfriend at the West Hollywood apartment they briefly shared. West Hollywood, the city where HIV is airborne. The Los Angeles Superior Court jury deliberated about 2 days before acquitting Andre Davids of the more serious charge of second-degree murder for the March 29, 2014 stabbing death of Kirtland Ma, a 34-year-old emergency room doctor. Oh, this makes me feel real good that an emergency room doctor has this proclivity. That makes me feel really good. It doesn't affect me. No, it does affect me. It makes me feel good. Because how could that go wrong? Deputy District Attorney Michelle Hennessy called it absolutely one of the most gruesome crime scenes that I or the homicide detectives have ever seen. Yeah, you think I cover some bad stuff and explore these things that nobody should look at? Homicide detectives. People who work on crime scenes, first responders. I can't imagine that, having to see dead bodies all the time. I don't think I could ever get used to that. Which is why I don't have the job. Which is why I never thought to work towards a career in it. But yeah. Those people. The people who work in this field, man, I can't imagine. Ma suffered about 40 stab wounds and was disemboweled with some of his organs stuffed into his mouth in pill bottles and pills shoved into his body cavity in a killing motivated by Ma's decision to break up with Davids, the prosecutor said. Well, we know about lesbian domestic violence. Now we know about homosexual male domestic violence. Very prevalent in both groups. Very prevalent. Davids, who was found inside a bathroom in the apartment, appeared to have taken a large amount of pills, authorities said. He was arrested the next day. Davids is facing up to 12 years in state prison with sentencing set for January 21st at the Airport Branch Courthouse. 12 years? This isn't manslaughter. Are you shitting me? Oh, it was in the heat of the moment, heat of passion, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we've all been there. We've all told our butt buddies that we want somebody else to sodomize us. And that causes a lot of rage that makes you want to stab somebody 40 times. 40 times! And that's voluntary manslaughter. You know, I've heard about cases where they say it was self-defense because there were 5 bullets used, there was still 1 bullet left in the chamber. And that if there were no bullets left in the chamber, that'd be considered excessive force. 6 bullets, that's excessive force, but stabbing 40 times and stuffing organs into the mouth, that's just the heat of the moment. You know, I've watched surgeries before. You can go look them up on YouTube. I've watched surgeries of hip replacements. I've watched ACL tear repairs. It's all cool stuff. I mean, it's a bit gruesome, but You can suppress that because you know that the surgeons are actually helping people. But in every case, it takes a while. It takes a while to make the incisions. It takes a while to take out bones and to rearrange cartilage. It all takes a while. It would take a while to cut the heart out of somebody and stuff it in their mouth. But that's just voluntary manslaughter. That is not a life sentence. No, that's only up to 12 years. This person is going to walk free in your lifetime. And that's because they're a natural aristocrat. They're better than you. So say the powers that be and your fellow man. Next, Dutch doctors euthanize woman suffering from ringing in the ears. Oh, those Dutch. Those Dutch. Death is a better fate than tinnitus. Which is one of the easiest things to treat, by the way. I've had it. I have it still. I don't really notice it. Pink noise. Pink noise does wonders. And this is from LifeSite News. So we have Dutch cucks, Dutch euthanasia addicts. It's a healthy place to be, I guess. Very happy to be quarter Dutch. But euthanasia is a voracious beast. Its hunger is never assuaged. Oh, and by the way, I believe I had a Dutch listener send me in something on one of the question comment threads over on the subreddit, saying how their family brought them to a gay pride parade. And it was so great, so beautiful, because it's a very important part of Dutch culture, apparently. Now in the Netherlands, a woman was lethally injected because of severe tinnitus, from the Dutchnews.nl story. A special clinic in The Hague set up to help people whose doctors do not support euthanasia has been reprimanded for helping a 47-year-old woman with chronic tinnitus to die, broadcaster NOS says on Monday. The independent commission charged with monitoring how Dutch euthanasia rules are applied recognizes that extreme tinnitus could be a reason for mercy killing, but said that Gabby Althwis should have undergone further psychiatric research. The story mentions a potential prosecution. That threat has no teeth. I recall one case in which a doctor killed a disabled baby, murder under Netherlander law, received a 3-week suspended sentence. Ditto a doctor who euthanized an anorexia patient, and the medical association was up in arms. You can't negotiate with sin. Like the beginning of the article said, euthanasia is a voracious beast. Its hunger is never assuaged. The same can be applied to any moral cancer. The same does apply. Always will. The article continues, I have moderate tinnitus, it ain't fun. And I am sure louder ringing than I currently experience would be very disturbing, but killed for it? Yeah. And now more natural aristocrat news from... Well, the perps are from south of the border, but it happened in America. So we can all deflect and ignore our own moral failings. It's from Fox10TV.com. Mesa, Arizona. A man and a woman were arrested Monday in connection with the worst case of child abuse Mesa police officers have seen in a while. This is just one of those cases that just shocks the soul, Mesa Police Chief John Meza said during a news conference Tuesday morning. The level of neglect was so harsh, she could not stand on her own, he added. Officers who responded to the scene were troubled by the conditions and having to witness this, and without delay, we have resources for them. Also, Meza said, when officers went in, all they saw was the top of the child's head and in the trash bag, Meza described. The child had duct tape over her mouth, around her arms, her hands, and legs. This is difficult to read. The 3-year-old child who had allegedly been offered up for sex was rescued Monday after authorities found her in a trash bag surrounded by feces in a closet. She's also malnourished. The suspect wanted to have sex with other people and said he put the child in the closet because she was too loud, officers said. The victim was found with many bruises, scars, and blisters on her body, police said. Police said the child's mother, Myra Yamali Salas, who was homeless and had been dropping the girl off with Francisco Rios Covarrubias for days at a time over the past month. Covarrubias. No, Zappa has a hyphenated last name. Rios Covarrubias. Wow. That's some name. Some name for some guy. The mother said she would see the child one day a week, and she knew her child was left alone for several hours while the suspect worked, Meza said. Meza said Rios Covarrubias had agreed to babysit the child while the mother went to work. Meza said Salas would stop by and see her child just one day a week. What the fuck? Police said they were tipped off Monday morning after a man Rios Covarrubias had met online for sex, showed up at the apartment around 7 a.m. and noticed a bad odor. See, natural aristocrats. He also observed the child bound and gagged with duct tape inside a closet, Meza said. The suspect asked the responding party if he wanted to have sex with the child, Meza said. The other man became upset and left the apartment. He returned shortly and had consensual sex, but told police he did not see the girl. He left and immediately called police. See, it didn't bother him enough to get his cummies elsewhere. What a great person. He told the police, but not before. Great person. When the police arrived, they found the girl was covered in feces, wearing a diaper and t-shirt. Meza said. Officers removed the duct tape and she was taken to the hospital. Rios Covarrubias is accused of sexually abusing her, officers said. He confessed to duct taping the child, police added. She's taken to a hospital for evaluation. Officers said the homeless mother had shaved her daughter's head so she could claim she had cancer to collect money. Meza police were even called to a... See, this is weird because the police chief is named Meza, and the city is named Mesa. Mesa police were even called to a Walmart on West Baseline on January 14. The store had called officers saying Salas was bothering shoppers in the parking lot for donations for a child that has cancer. Salas also told police she admitted to knowing about her daughter's injuries but did not seek treatment. She said she believed the girl had fallen, Meza said. Fortunately, the child was recovered before any more additional harm could be done to her, police said in a statement. Rios Covarrubias faced a Maricopa County Superior Judge Tuesday to answer to charges of kidnapping, sexual conduct with a minor, felony child abuse, and sex trafficking. The judge could not find sufficient evidence on the latter charge. Rios Covarrubias was denied bail because he is in the U.S. illegally. Buried very deep in this article. He's a natural aristocrat and he's illegal. But there's no such thing as an illegal person. He also has been placed on an immigration and customs enforcement hold. Neighbors of Rios Covarrubias described him as a man who liked dressing in women's clothing. Oh man, this just gets more something. I don't know what it is. An apartment complex manager says he only lived in the community for a few months. She and many others in the complex were stunned by the public arrest Monday. It makes me sick. It's a child. It's a baby, neighbor Cheryl Wall said. And you think, didn't the baby scream? Didn't anybody hear nothing? Oh my god, I hope the baby's fine. That's some of the sickest stuff that I've ever heard in my life, another neighbor Raphael said. That's sad. That would actually go down. That's just horrifying. Nothing like that should ever happen to anybody. Salas was booked on child abuse charges. She also made her initial court appearance Tuesday. The judge set her bond at $15,000. Police said Salas did not have a history with the Department of Child Safety prior to this case. The arrest of any suspect involved in abuse or exploitation of any child is the highest priority for the Mesa Police Department, police stated. Meza said local law enforcement agencies still have work cut out for them in sex and exploitation cases. It brings to light the efforts we need to continue on sex trafficking. It's a problem that exists, Meza said. In this case, it was a combination of just evilness, but also the fact that the suspect had offered up this child to the person who called to have sex with, Meza said. Sin is a voracious beast. Society is a carnivorous flower. How many ways can you say it? How many more stories do we need to go through for people to get it? Before we get into the question comment thread, somebody posted, Hayos specifically posted this thread to the Common Filth subreddit. The title, Posting Xenophobic Views Online in Germany Could Cost You Your Job and Child. And he says, so CF, about that from the pan into the fire from last episode, care to rethink that statement? I thought I said it, that America was the pan and that Europe's the fire, but Regardless, I said this was my exact comment. Regardless, this proves my point about pathological treachery being inherent in Western/Northern European genetics. There's other good comments here. Fool's World 1 says, there's a German kid who goes to my school. He's really liberal and we have conflicting opinions on gun control. He just thinks it absurd that you can purchase a gun so easily in America, and he doesn't understand why we cling so dearly to our gun rights. Except that it's not easy to purchase a gun. I mean, depending on where you live, some places are more easier than others, but it's not the cakewalk Europe imagines it. What else? The way he sees it, we should have to get licensed and have gun owners monitored like back home. Bring up the fact that here in America we have historically been deathly afraid of too much government interference and tyranny. I tell him guns give people power against tyranny, not to mention a chance to defend outsiders against assailants in our everyday lives. He tells me, oh, you don't have to tell me about that, we are Hitler. But in the same breath goes on to say that government isn't so scary and that we can trust our own government enough to not need guns. Well, again, he can't even follow his own logic. One thing doesn't lead to another. Oh, the government we could trust. The same state, the same border, the same region that gave the rise to Hitler that you think is so bad and you can trust the government. Okay, great. Continues. This is his home country that he so readily trusts. Like I said, trust without loyalty is worthless. Worthless. And Europeans are treacherous. Nobody has been able to convince me otherwise. Nobody has ever been able to say, oh, look, this proves that they're inherently loyal. No. Nobody has ever proven me wrong about that. No one. It continues. This is a situation where I would be about ready to take arms against. This is what happens when your people are spineless fags who don't value their only tool of power equilibrium they have against their governments and themselves. This is the end game of a liberal socialist system. Don't really know if I had a point to this, but I guess it's fuck Europe and fuck liberal gun control. And then Trist added, in France, the main arguments are the bad guys will get weapons even more easily. We don't have to do justice for ourselves, it's what the police are here for. And look at America, they have shootings all the time because it's easy to get weapons. The other day I replied that it's mainly gang fights and that the police have to do whatever the government tells them to do since it's their job. I got one good reply. Yeah, it's racist white cops shooting black kids, totally gangs. I gave up the argument and went back to sip on my Powerade. We don't have Gatorade here. I saw a picture that one of my Facebook friends posted of some guy holding up a sign saying, like, armed gays don't get bashed. He had that in his one hand, and in his other hand he had Powerade. And somebody told me that Gatorade was gay recently. I approve otherwise now. Free Gatorade. Gatorade's a human right. Yeah, all good comments. And a note about emails, because I don't have the my email up right now, so I'm not going to write this. There are a lot of people that have been sending me emails, and they've remained in private correspondence. And it's getting harder because I'm getting more of them, more that I do not feel comfortable reading aloud while I'm recording. And it's also difficult for me to keep up with them because I feel obligated to send back a lengthy response. Because people send me lengthy emails, very thoughtful emails, and it's all very nice. It is, I don't know what it is, but it fills me with a sense of responsibility that people open up to me. And I would not betray that trust. Like I said, trust without loyalty is worthless. I am not disloyal. But if I haven't gotten back to you, it's not because I'm ignoring you or that you're not on my mind, you are. It's I'm struggling to find the right words. I'm struggling to find the right wisdom. I'm struggling with myself in my own head, thinking that if I don't give a lengthy enough response, that it won't be good enough. So that's a message to some people, and you know who you are, and you are in my thoughts all the time. And there's some other good stuff on the subreddit, like from Victimperialist. I heard your comments about white loyalty problems, and it reminded me of a book called The Abolition of Man, and I wondered if you were familiar with it. I am not, but I will read the quote that you shared from it. Such is the tragicomedy of our situation. We continue to clamor for those very qualities we are rendering impossible. In a sort of ghastly simplicity, we remove the organ and demand the function. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We castrate and bid the geldings be fruitful. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right, now for the question and comment thread on Reddit r/commonfilth. If you would like to join the conversation, let's have a dialogue. You can, yeah. Have you ever listened to Moon Man? Yes, I have. Moon Man is funny. I also wanted to share an interesting encounter with a paused demon last year. So I was in sophomore year in high school, and we have an assembly in the auditorium where one of these fuckers came up to the stage and started telling a sob story about how he got paused, boo-hoo. He said that he was planning to fuck his partner, and when he asked about his HIV status, his partner remained silent. Then he went on to get his asshole teared up. He said that he was overtaken by desire as some sort of rationalization. That just adds on to what you've been saying for the past 70 plus episodes that these fucks are hedonists and only care about cum and tingles. What got me, though, wouldn't surprise me now, is that these kids were eating this shit up and feeling all sympathetic for him. Sympathetic for a demon. Either I witnessed Satan's breeding strategy firsthand, or this male was making a shitty attempt to confess his sins. Yeah, we both know that's not the case. I know I'm probably not giving you a lot of information to comment on, but I felt the need to share. Have a good one, CF. Thank you very much for sharing. And yeah, you did see it firsthand. One of many Satan's breeding strategies. And I'm gonna say this again. The reason why I keep talking about this, I was reminded of it. I came back to Facebook after some time away from it, and I put some stuff on Tumblr, used as the Facebook page, and I get people who militantly defend this. I mean, and it's from young people. And it's from people, in spite of what they're seeing, are still defending it. Like, for example, there's a video out there of this guy going to a gay bar and asking some guys some questions, some older, some younger. And he's asking them questions like, oh, how old is the youngest guy you got with? And this old guy says 12. 12. And some other guy said he got raped when he was 4. Some other guy talked about babysitters and urine. It was so disturbing that these guys are just like, oh yeah. They're in an environment where they're amongst people who are like themselves and they're open with this. They think, oh, I'm amongst, friendly company. I can trust these people. I can open up. And this is how they open up. This is what they reveal. And people still say, oh, you're an idiot. This isn't real. You're an idiot. I'm an ally. That's all they say. All these young people, all these white kids. And I was reminded all over again of why I do what I do. What does the C in CF stand for? But thank you for sharing. Hey, CF and assorted paws pigs. I was reading an article at work the other day and I realized I should post it here for discussion. I believe it was one of your works, CF, that had you reading out some blog post about how soon the paws pigs will no longer be oppressed because everyone can just take pre- and post-grid exposure medications after exposing their neg holes to these vile beasts. I couldn't find the exact article I was reading, but the one I found was much worse. See below. The drug that's turning the safe sex message on its head. Should we read? Click, we're here. HIV drug prevention PrEP. The drug that's turning the safe sex message on its head. It's just going to come back to you worse. You escape God's wrath and it's just going to be worse than it was. You're going to create something so horrible that we don't have a name for it yet. It's been called the game changer that could eliminate HIV in Australia within 5 years. It's from news.com.au. But the little blue pill that promises the freedom to engage in unbridled promiscuity is dividing the gay community. The gay community. That's funny that AJ Styles makes his WWE debut, and we read that word within the same time frame. I mean, it's after midnight, so it's not the same day, but I've been awake I've been awake from one day to the next. I watched the Royal Rumble, by the way. I liked it, actually. It was entertaining. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. If you want to know what I'm talking about, look up AJ Styles, The Gay Community on YouTube. It's really funny. Yeah, how dare a guy be uncomfortable with the fact that strangers on the internet lust after him? Yeah, that's something that that's normal. He should be flattered that people want to sodomize him. We live in a. It's just some things, you know. Some things should just be obvious, how absurd and how wrong they are. But apparently not. Apparently being phobic of these things, that's worse. Okay, it costs $10,000 for a year's supply of Truvada, a drug that prevents transmission of the virus that is no longer a death sentence, but still requires lifelong treatment. While some see it as a ticket to freedom, others deplore the drug as dangerous, raising concerns about its impact on the kidneys and the risk of spreading other sexually transmitted infections. Apart from a few hundred participants in a limited... Okay, I need to get back to the comment because that's what we're here for. But thank you for sharing the link. I don't have much to say about it, but there's so much degeneracy packed into a relatively small article here, it would make for a great reading on CF Radio. Feel free to ignore this post if you disagree. Well, here we are. From the photo of the hipster faggot wearing a shirt emblazoned with hashtag Truvada whore, what the fuck? To the fact that the drug has even been labeled a party drug by a Mr. Weinstein, to the fact that it damages your kidneys and liver. Oh, we didn't get that far in the article. That's right, folks. You can get constantly fucked by a disease-ridden faggot all night long, and you won't get grid. What a world! All it will cost you is your kidneys and liver. Yeah, that's a small price to pay. Why not? It's like a bargain was struck between them and Satan himself. And taking the stuff when they actually do get infected while taking it looks like it actually causes, cue up the soundbite, med-resistant AIDS. I don't have the second audio track to do that effect, but it's there in spirit. This drug also apparently damages your immune system. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. What the hell is wrong with these people? I'm not sure why the fuck taking a drug that damages your immune system is somehow vastly superior to having a disease that does the same thing. Maybe these poofs are just upset they miss out on taking the pill like all their fag hag friends. Yeah, gay birth control, there you go. Continuing. A choice quote from the article. Old school natural sex without condoms is kind of amazing. Old school natural? Well, I mean, if we're talking about the proud Roman, Greek, Aryan tradition of, yeah, I guess it is natural and old school. It's natural, goy, don't judge them, fuck hate. This whole article is damage control piece aimed at convincing the masses that these diseased people who are carrying a lethal disease are nothing to worry about. There's even a nice little piece about how this grid drug could even help straight couples who have a grid member partner. Somehow I don't think these straight people caught grid by stepping on a needle on the beach. Yeah. There is a little bit written about it here, but the other article focused on this more heavily. These people are... I can't keep reading that word, so I'm just going to change it. You can't say it too many times. Are throwing a bitch fit because this isn't on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme here in the great land of Australia. You can readily import it from overseas, but these rump rangers are upset because our border protection officers are stopping their bulk shipments and not releasing them until tax is paid on them. I'm sure it won't be too long before this drug is actually getting prescribed like birth control. We can only pray that the organ failure and immune deficiency brought on by this drug kills them quicker. A small justice that warms my heart. Great post, great comment, and thank you very much for sharing it. And when people say, no, it doesn't affect you, we know that that's wrong on a spiritual level, on a societal level, but just on a practical level. On a practical level, it does affect you because it misallocates resources to those who actually could put them to good use. But apparently that's not convincing enough. So you see, if you give people anecdotes, they ask for data. Do you have any proof? Bigot. And if you give them data, they'll just be like, well, I have a gay friend, and... Or they'll dismiss the data because it's the present year. Yeah, because a lot changes in 20 years. Yeah, the lesbians, they're still They're no longer trailer trash who abuse their children, and homosexuals, they're not afflicted with promiscuity. No, not at all. So much has changed since 1995. So much. I think 1995 is around the time when all of this started. Thanks, Gen X. Next, what do you think of Wiggers? They are deracinated. They're looking for something to properly guide them, and they're looking for it in all the wrong places. But look, it's like Osama bin Laden says, you see a strong horse and you see a weak horse, you're going to take the strong horse. Unfortunately, hip-hop, rap culture provides the strong horse for young white men looking for masculine guidance. Whether it's wrong or right, it's probably wrong. That's what it is. And that's why they are how they are. Next. So there was a lot of talk about Romans 1 in Common Filth Radio 72. I love Romans 1. I mean, I love the entire Bible, but Romans 1 is very telling. Just wanted to add in some verses you probably already know, but I find them especially powerful and interesting. Certainly my favorite verses in Romans 1, 18 through 25. Verses 18 through 25. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God hath showed it into them, or unto them, rather. Pardon me. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because that when they knew God, they glorified him as not God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations. And their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. And changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds, and four-footed beasts, and creeping things. Wherefore God also gave them up to uncleanliness through the lusts of their own hearts, to dishonor their own bodies between themselves. Who changed the truth of God into a lie, and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. The Lord couldn't have been more right about all this. Honestly, these types of things from the Bible really strengthened my faith. Yeah, me too. Like I said, a big part of why I believe the way I believe is because the wisdom is so timeless. And how they knew this stuff in a time where people were more limited in the amount of people that they knew. What they could observe. Because now we can observe everything. Back then they didn't have such luxury. They had to let they had to let God work through them to see this stuff. But we'll continue. Being in high school, 9th grade, these verses remind me not to be surprised when I see even peers my age behave the way they do, and believe me, there's no shortage of garbage in my age group. Oh, I imagine. Like I said, a big reason why I talk about what I talk about is seeing what young people view. And not just young people like you. Young people who are only like a couple of years younger than I am. People who are older than me that should know better. All still young people. God tells us up front that without him, we're pretty much nothing. Without Jesus Christ, there's no room for moral apathy. I find that when it all comes down to it, the degenerates' main issue will always be the lack of Jesus. In fact, I know firsthand that the way these people think is devastating. Even in 7th grade, I started to become a Tumblr idiot. I don't make this longer than it probably already is, so long story short, I was miserable up until the middle of 8th grade when I completely accepted Jesus as my Lord and Savior. He's the one that made me sane again, and he's the one keeping me sane now. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, verse 22. The wisdom of this world will always be wrong. For the most part, I have no hope for this world. Jesus told us not to wonder when we only see things going downhill. He told us not to wonder when we see revelations begin to come to pass. He tells us to watch and be sober. I really do believe we're living in the beginning of the end, and I'm not surprised, and I'm not dismayed. Followers of Christ just need to remember to not be of the world, Romans 12:2, and that all of this is supposed to happen. The way I see it, as long as Christ is our God, which is forever, we don't need to be so distraught about the trash reprobates spew. They've rejected God, and God has essentially already judged and rejected them. Our job is to do His will and bring as many people to Christ as we can. There really is no other answer than Jesus. I want all the normal and good people to know that they shouldn't worry and be afraid of this world. Here's some good things to remember. Fear thou not, for I am with thee. Be not dismayed, for I am thy God. I will strengthen thee. Yea, I will help thee. Yea, I will uphold thee with the right hand of my righteousness. Isaiah 41:10. Teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you, and lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. Amen. Matthew 28:20. God's love for His children is without limits. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life nor angels nor principalities nor powers nor things present nor things to come nor height nor depth nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Romans 8:38-39. And He will never reject anyone who comes to Him in faith. For whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. Romans 10:13. Forgive the length of this comment. It's hard to put how amazing the Lord is in a few short words. I'm not actually looking for you to read this on Common Filth Radio. It's up to you if you do. Well, I'm glad I did. I had not read that part of your post up until this point. I just want to get my thoughts out there. It's evident that people who are too deep in the feces will drown in it. You can't convince those people to believe the truth, but you can pull a good amount of their audience out of it if they're willing to listen. There's a saying I like to remember when being bombarded with filth. The truth is hate to those who hate the truth. Love what you do, CF. God bless. And God bless you too, young men. Thank you very much for taking the time to share this with me. There's nothing I can say about what you've said because you've said it all. And again, thank you for that. Thank you very much. Next. Hey, Common Filth, I was wondering what your thoughts were on certain ethnic groups that try and preserve their heritage in the New World. I.e., how often you see this with Southern and Eastern Europeans. They tend to usually only date other people of the same ethnicity. I was wondering what you thought about this. Does it beat the whole point of coming to the New World? Anyway, I'm going to stop beating around the bush here. I come from a family similar to that. And I do want to pass on my heritage, but the problem I have is that most of the people of my ethnicity have either drinking the Kool-Aid and are no longer centered around the family, or they're already taken. I was wondering what you do in this situation, CF. I don't know if you're Southern or Eastern or both, but I don't think anybody would have a problem with you finding a nice girl of, say, Western or Northern European descent, or some Euromut that is very common in America. I mean, they're difficult to find. I'm probably going to elaborate on that further at some point. But for example, you're Slavic, and you marry a German girl or whatever and have kids with her. The kids in that arrangement are removed from the historical context of, say, World War II. They're not going to have the same problems. Hitler was wrong about the Slavs in the end. But, there are Slav-German mixes during that time that feel resentment, that feel conflict about their heritage. But those genetics are far removed from that historical context. So, no worries there. But yeah, this is not like a difficult situation where somebody in the equation's mixed race and the kids will have identity problems, which eventually get bred out. People have a very, short-sighted view of it. It's like, how many Americans do we have with like 1% black blood, Especially those with deep roots in America. I mean, in the short term, it is awful for your children if they're mixed race more often than not. And I have nothing against these people. I've known many mixed race people. They're all fine people. I have no problem with them, but they got some issues. Not insurmountable ones, difficult ones, but ones they will struggle with for likely their entire lives. And now I'm reminded, like I said, I'd get into it, about white women. I think somebody asked me on Twitter, I thought it was on Reddit, but I'm obviously mistaken. Somebody asked me about Roosh. And I've read Roosh's stuff before. I've read stuff from Return of Kings on here, and I think his observations on culture are really interesting. I think he has a lot of on-point things to say. I don't really care about his sampling women nonsense. I find interacting with people exhausting, let alone dozens, hundreds of people at a time. And on a sexual basis, it just sounds awful to me. So I'm not interested in that. But a lot of people, that I've seen have taken offense to the fact that he prefers white women when he's like half Iranian, half Armenian or something. And I think that's because he highlights a moral failing in white people. People bitch and moan, he's sleeping with our women. Well, like I said earlier, who's to blame? The salesman or the customer? Who swipes their card? Who pulls out their wad of $20 bills? Who spreads their legs? Is it wrong to exploit a weakness? I think so, yeah. But at the end of the day, it falls on the person carrying the weakness. And that has been a weakness of European people for a long time. Permissive sexual mores. I was slightly off track there, but now I am back on the full track. The comment that spurred this whole thing, I'm kind of making an assumption here. I don't know if you're male or female, but regardless, the advice stays the same. Somebody who's genetically similar doesn't have to be identical to you. Somebody who is that and loyal and moral. Loyalty and morality, that is the most important thing, first and foremost. Let's go back to the beginning of the show. Girl saying, I fuck dogs, it doesn't affect you, get over it, it's legal where I do it. White girl. Does it change if she's a tint of brown or yellow? Does that change? No, it changes nothing. When people say, ooh, what's more important, morality versus race? All that means, all I'm hearing is, I'm a piece of shit white person, and I think that's important because the whiteness should come first. I know we would all like to be convinced of our own infallibility and how dare they and all of this, but you gotta answer for dog fucking amongst many other things. No amount of fair skin and light eyes can cover up that mess. Next. Hey CF, I wanted to get your opinion on one of Sargon's newer videos. And the video talks about a Google Hangout he had with members of the alt-right and draws many comparisons between the alt-right and SJWs. I'd love to see what you have to say on it. I might get around to watching Sargon's take on it at some point so that I could fully understand where he's coming from. But from where I stand, I don't see a whole lot of similarities between the two. I mean, they're both odious, but I think they're odious for a very specific reason, and that is their rabid defense of the natural aristocrats. Both of them consider it to be beyond reproach. I've given you instances of members of the alt-right referring to homosexuals as a natural elite and saying that they're inherently right-wing and they preserve our culture, and they're okay with that. As are SJWs, whatever that means nowadays. It's a catch-all term for left-wing dipshits. Even still, I don't even think it's that anymore. I just think it's people who have strong opinions about things, which is just stupid, but yeah, that's what they have in common, as far as I see it. Hi. A few weeks ago, a cardiologist at a big hospital in Paris committed suicide jumping from the 7th floor of the hospital, leaving behind him a wife and 5 children. Long story short, cutthroat at a hospital to know who's going to get the head of the cardiology department. The MD, who we will call Dr. M because it's a French name, if you want to pronounce it, it's pronounced Ménine, has a great past, is loved by his parents, is a professor, as well as being a cardiologist and a surgeon, and works hard with his students. He is known for 20 years, the head of the department, who is soon going to leave, so everyone expects Dr. M to get the spot. But out of the blue, his past-long senior wants to give the spot to another doctor. Let's call him Dr. F, even though his name is Chironi. I know that's probably not how you pronounce it, but you know what? I don't want to pause and look up these pronunciations, so forgive me. They decide to have the spot shared for a while, but after a bit, he gives up and renounces the candidacy, explaining that everything is unfair. He's being locked up in a small office. He has all the paperwork to do nothing, and nothing is balanced properly. He gets all the cons and none of the pros of the position. So he pretty much says, screw this, you get the spot, I give up. But the storm starts here. Dr. F, who got the spot at his place, now files a complaint to discredit Dr. M, saying he's mentally unstable and, what do you do to discredit someone today? What is the worst thing you can do to somebody in this dire age? He files a complaint for quote-unquote homophobic comments, From there, shit hits the fan. Everybody hates Dr. M at the hospital, everybody avoids him, he is humiliated and punished. Anonymous letters mocking him are sent, he can't see his patients, has cases taken from him. This lasts for 2 years. They change the locks of his own office, he has to call a locksmith. A few days later, jumps from it. Here's an English article about it if you want more details. Don't know if everything is in it. Got the details from different French reports. I'll ask you to pay attention to the 9th paragraph. Sure. I'm just going to do this live. I'm not going to edit out the clicking sounds. If you're listening in this far, you won't mind that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or was it till the 9th paragraph? To the 9th paragraph, okay. Yeah, it says, instead, according to documents leaked to a news website, he was reportedly accused of being mentally unstable and making homophobic comments, which he adamantly denied. Hey, another thing, the radical left has something in common with the alt-right. They think that people who make homophobic comments are mentally unstable. Let's go back to the comment. So yeah, be a good doctor, be a good family man, have a you-know-what, take your spot, call it by its name once. It's homophobic. The end, you're finished. It did cause an uproar, but the media ignored the main part. They focus on the bullying, not what started it. There's a Voltaire apocrypha that states, to learn who rules over you, find out who you are not allowed to criticize. Voltaire never actually said it, and that it's it's some KKK dude who said something along those lines about another group of people. But it clearly applies to the sodomites. I covered a story very similar to this about a urologist who worked for a hospital in Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken. And he expressed concern about the hospital that employed him, the hospital's activity in the natural aristocrat community. And this is a man who is a respected urologist who has studied what sexual activity does to the human body and how some activities are more risky than others, and they canned him because he's creating a hostile work environment. Yes, stating the truth is now a hostile work environment. And I guess it makes sense why they would promote the activities of the natural aristocrats because, well, they lead high-risk lifestyles that would cause them to go to hospitals, run up high hospital bills, and there you go. And this is on massresistance.org if you want to read it. I'll read the first paragraph and you can fill yourself in on the details at a different point. I have covered this on the show before. I do not remember which episode I read this story on, but I did read it. But he's Dr. Paul Church, been a urologist on the BIDMC staff of the hospital, which stands for Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. He's on their staff in Boston for nearly 30 years, a member of the Harvard Medical School faculty. He's done research on diagnosing prostate and bladder cancer, has been a frequent volunteer for medical mission projects in Mexico and Africa. He has also spoken before educational and civic groups on the subject of high-risk sexual behavior. So, a very well-educated, very accomplished man. And he gets punished for telling you simply what is. And that's apparently hostile. But hey, well-respected people by any measure being punished, that doesn't matter. That's secondary. I don't want to live in a world where that's secondary. That is a secondary issue. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Here's an MS Paint comic about it. Next. What are some policies or laws that would discourage antisocial/degenerate behavior? And do you think the state should be involved in these kinds of issues? I remember in past episodes you had an idea for a law that was something along the lines of resetting one's legal age to 0 if they changed their name to fit a new identity after a sex change to discourage the trans. Also, in case you weren't informed, the pause load soundbite is now Say Sound on one of 8chan's TF2C servers. Well, that's really cool. Send them my best regards. I don't like to think too much about legislation. I did say that before, and I still think that. I think that's a really good idea. It shows great imagination on my part, and that's not me bragging. That's not me boasting. You hear that train? Somebody said that whenever I say that there's some noise, they can't hear it, but I heard that pretty clearly. I'm gonna let it go. Is it coming through? No, whatever. I think there are things that can be done through the state that can discourage deviant behavior, antisocial behavior passively. Like, for example, if you want to make marriage this federal thing, there's a way you could reverse engineer that. You could say if your marriage cannot produce a child, naturally produce a child, it will be annulled in 2 or 3 years' time, whatever amount of time. No, adoption doesn't count. No, but baby embryos don't count. Any form of genetic engineering does not count. Any form of fertility drug, fertility hack, life hack, have a butt baby, that doesn't count. That's a piece of legislation you can use. But it will never happen. And all of this imagination I am putting to use would be rendered irrelevant if people were able to restrain themselves morally. If there existed such a thing as moral restraint amongst people, specifically my people, it wouldn't be an issue. And that's it. That's all. Thank you very much for the question. Hey, CF, I have 2 questions. What's your opinion of a married couple who goes to church, fears God, has a good job, basically a stereotypical 50s couple having a high sex drive? Look, marriage exists to make that safe. In case anything goes unplanned, you have marriage. That is what it is for. It is for the children, the potential children. It is so that you do not create bastards. It is so you do not create children that are born to people who are just like, oops. Basically, people who aren't doing things accidentally. And so that they have 2 families. Mom's side, dad's side, and all of the related people coming from mom and dad. 2 families. You have access. The kid has access to 2 families to take care of it. If mom needs help, dad needs help. That's what it's for. If a man and a woman are married, that's great. And they're expressing their love to each other, that's great. That's how it's supposed to be done. 2, you said in the last episode, I think, that white people have horrible trust issues or something of that nature. Can you elaborate on that? Well, I kind of did, didn't I? Telling you about these stories of police officers abandoning their duties to do what they do, to have an orgy. And now there are videos of German girls being raped by migrants. And they're being censored or they're being called a hoax. People in Britain are being thrown in jail for stuff they post on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm not talking about trust problems, I'm talking about loyalty problems. And trust and loyalty, you need them both. You can't have trust without loyalty, it's suicidal. And you can't be loyal to that which is not loyal to you. You cannot be loyal to that which is not loyal to you. I've said this many times. And nobody proves me wrong. This episode it's getting out of hand. My goodness, I've been recording for a long time. This is not the longest episode, but it's getting up there. But thank you for the questions. Thank you. And then the last one. Yeah, I think I'm going to do an email only episode or something like that. Just to get them all out of the way. Not of course, reading emails that people wouldn't want me to read, but, the stuff that people send me to read on this show. I'll get to that. But not on this episode, unfortunately, because I'm tired. I have things to do. Usually when I feel this drained at the end of an episode, that's when they're usually at their best. And I've been feeling like that more often than not recently, so I don't want to think about the quality of it too much. So you can't get too high if, you know, you do something really good, you know, you're riding that high. You can't get too cocky about that. You can't get too proud of yourself, full of yourself, because you'll come crashing down. And when something doesn't go as well as you thought it did, you don't get too low. You have to keep a lucid outlook, whether you're doing good or whether you're doing not your best. There is something to be said for keeping it steady. And that's my bit of off-the-cuff advice here. So with that in mind, we'll go into this last one. What's your darkest vision of the future? If things remain on their present course, people convinced of their own bullshit. People convinced of their own, oh, I exist, therefore I'm virtuous. President Trump will make my sin into virtue. That's what I see a lot of people thinking. And it bothers me. It bothers me. Arrogance bothers me. Proud sinners bother me. People who are incapable of looking at the mirror bother me. People afraid of their own reflection and what it might reveal bother me. The future will bring more of the same. What can be darker than that? I don't know. But let us pray that somewhere God's light shines through regardless.
Grown, ain't I? The skinny nigga with the fro to the slightly bigger nigga who's a killer with the flow. Went from YouTube beats and SoundCloud, nigga. The only difference now is that I found Twitter. Fuck it, it's struggle rap, man. They never see the trouble that I'm going through. The way I sing, they think I live in bubble wrap. Fuck all that, even though I'm on some poppin' shit. With my niggas as my witness, I'm a nigga who can spit. Don't believe me? Overlooking my potential, I'm that poet to a phone, that poet was to a pencil. My mental is similar to that of a lion, and I'm the king of